Good morning, Flosstube. It is Helen D, and it is time to make some berry toppers. This video is going to show you how to make, or how I'm going to make, the 3 spring berry toppers. So this is Spring Berries by Erica Michaels. I have my berries sewn up to this point. So I already have a tutorial that shows you how to assemble berries start to finish. And I didn't want to make you sit through half of it again. So I thought I will do these seasonal berry videos just on the toppers. I will link the tutorial below that will show you how to sew them up, how to stuff them, how to put the yarn in the bottom, how to close up the tops, so that by the time we're ready for this video, they're at this point. Because as I said in that video, making berries is really a 2-step process. You have the assemble of the berry, then you have the assemble of the top, then you put them together. So it's kind of 2 things in one. So you'll see with these, I have these long strings on them. That's because when I sew them together on the top, you're not going to see whatever color string it is that you use because it gets cinched in. But I like to then leave that long string, mine are probably too long, and use it to attach the topper. So what that means is before I sew up the berries, I laid out my wool pack. Figure out where here in the camera we are. Over here. I laid out my wool pack from Ruby Mountain Dye Works. And I made some decisions about, I'm going to widen you guys out a little bit, which colors I want to use on which berries. So I went by the picture on the back, and it shows the rabbit berry has the darker green or the brighter green with the purple flower. So that's these 2. The one with the bird has one of these lighter greens. Karen dyed them. They're kind of the same color, just one is a print and one is a solid. So it's one of these with the nest and the eggs. And then the third berry was just solid green with some leaves. So I thought, well, maybe I'll use the patterned one for my solid, this lighter green to go with the nest and the eggs, and then this green and the purple together. So that's my thinking. So then I matched up my floss with these 2 greens. I like to close my berries up with sulky floss because I have it. If you don't have it, I wouldn't go out and buy it. You can easily use a sewing thread or even DMC, long lengths of DMC. Just match the color as best you can, and if you're using something like that, I would definitely use 2 strands. I might even use 3, but probably 2. So for these, the birds and the words, I used a darker, and then I used this brighter, which doesn't quite match, but it's the closest one I had for this one. So they are all ready to go for their toppers with their long strings dangling that I just kind of wrap around them to get them out of the way while I'm working on other things. So I'm going to start with the basic cap itself. I've decided that, like these, I'm going to do all of them in the scalloped cap. I have a template already made, and I will include down below. I had put together, I just traced my templates. These are the same ones that come on the berries in the package, but in the package you have to lay them out. So here's the designs from the packet. So they're in there, you just have to trace them and kind of fold these in half to make your full thing. Seems I already had them. I figured to make life easier for all of you, I just traced them out, and that way you can go through and just cut these out. I had done mine on some clear vinyl that I had left over. I like this because then I can see exactly where I'm cutting my berry when I'm putting it together. I've since bought a piece of quilter's template. It's like a Mylar, but I haven't had a chance to actually cut them out yet. For the topper though, I've printed mine on a cardstock. You could just cut this out. Mine happens to be on a piece of file folder. So I have that ready to go. My topper is a little larger than the one that comes with the chart because I like my toppers a little bigger. I can show you actually an example. This berry I used just the size from the chart, and to me it's just a little small because I'm using a 32 or a 16 count. I just want it to cover a little more. So I've kind of made mine a little bigger. So what I'm going to do, I have my freezer paper, my Reynolds Kitchens freezer paper. This has plasticky stuff on one side, like a waxy and a non-waxy. I'm going to take my template and trace it onto, loudly, the non-waxy side. Get all those felts out of the way. So I'm just going to take this, take a pencil, and trace right around it. And I'm going to end up doing this 3 times, one for each berry. Sometimes you might be able to reuse the same template, or you can just trace it 3 times. So I'm going to take 3 of these. I'm not going to cut along the scallop. I'm going to kind of just cut close to. Cut around the edge. And then take my little waxy paper bit, go over to my iron. I'm going to shut this off. Go over to my iron. Take my felt, lay it on there. And I try and get it pretty close to the edges because I don't want to waste any of my felt. I want to have plenty of felt for other things. Like if you put it in the middle, you're eating the brownie out of the center of the pan. So take the edge piece. So I'm going to iron that right on, just with a medium weight, medium heat iron. And then I'm going to cut this shape out. So I'm actually going to turn this off. I'm going to cut out 2 and then I'll cut out the 3rd one on camera with you. So I'll be back. Okay, I am back from there. So I've cut out 2. They still have their wax paper on them. Here's my 3rd. It's not wax paper. I keep calling it that, but it is freezer paper. One side is waxy. So again, I just ironed it on. The reason that this works so well is it really holds that paper right to your felt versus if you pinned it, you know, it can get kind of out of place on the edges, and this gives you a really nice shape. What scissors you're using also makes a difference. In the past, I have a pair of little snips that I have used. But my husband got me these scissors for Christmas. They were my stocking. They're Tim Holtz. I saved the package. I'll show you in just a second. And they work great on this felt. And they're nice and sharp on the end so I can get right in these little edges. So cut out our last one. Kind of flip on the back, see if there's anything that, you know, looks out of sorts. The scissors are a Tim Holtz 5-inch mini snips. My little scraps. If I have any paper left, I just peel it off. And then I can just peel these right off my wool. It doesn't leave any of the waxy residue on the wool. Some people say they will reuse these. I haven't tried that. Typically I just cut a new one for each because then I can iron them all on there at once. I do have some thicker reusable wax paper that I found. Freezer paper. But for these, I just thought I'd use this. All right, so there's my basic caps. So you can see size-wise, they will just cover a little bit more. Now, one thing I wanted to say about the caps, if you're changing the size of your berry, if you're using a 28 count or a 36 count, Emmy's gonna come join us. Probably just for a minute. The table's wiggly, it's her fault. If you're changing the size of your cap and you're a little nervous about it and you don't want to cut into your wool yet, use a piece of just inexpensive craft store wool to test it, or use a piece of, you're not helping, even cotton fabric, right? Like just a piece of cotton quilter's fabric. You're gonna have to move, my friend, to cut it out and test it to see if you have it the right size before you kind of cut into it. So let's do one at a time. Let's do the easy one. So one of them just has, it's this one. We were going to use the patterned wool, and it just has some leaves on it and a button. You have a template for this particular leaf shape if you want to use it. I prefer just kind of 2 leaves. So that's what I'm going to do. And I have my leaf cut out from the template sheet. It's a little big, but by the time I iron it and then cut it out, it might be a little bit smaller. Or I can just make them a little bit smaller. So I'm going to, again, use my wax paper, remove the cat, shut the door so she doesn't get in, and cut out 2 leaves for this berry. I ironed my leaves on. I've already cut one out. I shut the door so Emmy has to stay out. Now we'll probably just hear her banging at the door. So I'll cut out my second and then we'll see what they look like. Stuff's sticky. Peel the backs off. Okay, so we have the top and 2 leaves that you can kind of layer up however you like the looks of. And my plan was, I kind of like to layer them so that they're kind of going over one of the little scallops. If you did it, you could do it the other way. I just like the look of them kind of going over one. And then I'm going to use, just like in the picture, there's a button. I went through my little button jar and grabbed a button. So I'm going to figure out where I want these so that the button is roughly in the middle. And then we're going to sew them on. So we're going to hand stitch these on, and I'm going to use the same color floss that I used around the edge of my berries. So I'm just going to put a couple knots in the bottom. It's the sulky, so it's kind of thick. I've tried a quilter's knot. I can never do it. Okay, so I'm going to stitch these down kind of one at a time. So I'll take whichever one is layered on the top off. And I'm just going to kind of make a row of hand stitches that looks kind of like the center of a leaf would. They're not going to be perfect. They're not going to be fancy. They may be straight. We'll see. So I'm kind of like your back stitching, right? I'm going to back stitch a line. No, it's not going to be straight. And I'll probably go halfway up. If you can hear that, it's my iron. It's more talkative than the cat's. So I went about halfway up. So then we'll take our other leaf here and get it, again, kind of adjusted to where I want it. It's going to cover up some of what I just did. That's fine. Still make sure that my button is kind of in the middle. Like I just put it there and this little bit on the end was sticking out too much, so I got to pull that up a little. So that's probably good. This one, I'm just going to hop right over and kind of start up toward the top because no one's going to see the bottom. We're going to sew that right on our berry. So now I'm going to just come down in a somewhat straight line. Now, if you have embroidery skills, by all means, this is the time to use them. I don't. I'd like to. I think it would be fun to learn some of those stitches and use them. But for this, it will be a semi-straight line. And then when I get to the middle, I'll sew the button on. And this one will be done. This one was easy. Okay. Lost my thread. All right, so down here at the bottom, I'm going to do my button just in this green thread. If you wanted it to show in a different color, by all means, swap it out. If you wanted to do like a yellow so it would look like the middle of a flower, whatever you like. Again, I'm just trying to eyeball it so that the button is roughly in the middle. And then I'm just going to sew this on a few times in each direction. Okay. All right. So this one will be ready to attach. And we'll move on to the next. You may have seen I have a hot glue gun. Don't get nervous. I couldn't find any other form of glue. All right, so I just kind of ran my needle under a few threads a couple times to tie that off. And then I'm going to snip that right off. I didn't have to snip it real close. Again, this is going on the berry. So this one will be ready to go. I'm going to set it aside. Who's next? Let's do the one with the nest, which is the bird. So for the one with the nest, we're done with this color. I think we're done with this color. Okay. We need our blue, our brown, and our blue. To make the nest, so this one's going over there. Okay. I used the other mossy green. So she has kind of two circles that are cut out with pinking shears to give it a look of like a nest, and then some rolled up eggs out of the light blue. So on those templates that I gave you, I did just a few circles of different sizes. And all this is one bigger size and then one smaller size. It's up to you kind of how big you want your nest. Seems I happen to have that template. I'm going to take my topper and see, all right, so the biggest one I gave you was 1 3/4. Is that too big? That would be a good size nest. So I think I might make one 5/8 my outer, and then my inner 1 3/8. You know what? I'm going to go bigger. I'm going to go 1 7/8. This is 1 3/4. So this is the largest one I gave you. And then I will go 1 3/4 and 1 5/8. Because once you cut them with the pinking shears, they might get a little shrunk up. So again, here comes the noisy wax paper. I'm just going to trace those 2 circles. Which you would trace with the templates, but I have this, so I'm going to use it. Cut them out. Just kind of cut around them enough that I'm not wasting my felt. And then I'm going to iron them to the felt. And then we'll come cut them out. We're ironed onto our felt. You can still see those 2 circles. I'm going to cut them, like between them, with my regular scissors. But I'm not going to cut the circles. I'm going to kind of cut little squares out around them. Get any bits off my wool. And then take my pinking shears and cut around this circle as evenly as I can. So my pinking shear will be kind of half on the line and half off the line. I'm not great with these, but I'll do my best. And you could do regular circles if you didn't want to mess with. My gosh, that one actually came out good. All right, there's one. Sometimes they never line up, right? All right, done with those. Pull my freezer paper off. Get it stuck to me again. All those bits can go. All right, so now I have kind of 2 layered up nest bits. Mine are, you can see her inside one is a little smaller. I could cut around this again if I wanted to, but I think that's fine. That'll work for me. So we have our felt for this cap. We're going to put these nest bits on there. You can kind of see how that's going to look. And then we're going to make some eggs. So for the nest bits, I had grabbed some brown, again the closest brown I could find. And I'm just going to take some little small stitches around the edge. I'm not going to go crazy, just enough to kind of hold it on there and keep them on. So I'll start with the big one. Again, I'm just eyeballing it to see, is there cat hair on it? Yes. Is it centered? Centered-ish. And then I'm just going to kind of come up through and go around some of these little points. I'll probably do every other. Just to tack it on there. And then I'm going to end up doing the same thing with the top layer. I'm tempted to try and cut that top layer a little smaller, but I know I'd never get it to be a circle, so I think I'm just going to leave it. Okay, so there's the top, and then I'll do the same with the bottom, with the tippy top, I guess. Oh, I'm not even close. What am I talking about? I guess my thread blended so well I couldn't tell where I was at. There we go. All right, now I'll take this top one. Kind of pop that on there. I'm going to chance it, you guys. I'm going to make it a little smaller. I probably should iron a piece on there and then cut it, but I'm going to just wing it and try and take a little bit off. If I don't like it, I can always cut out a new one, right? Now that I've made a mess, let's see if that's just a smidge smaller. Not much, but just a little bit, but I'm going to take it. I'm just going to keep it. All right, I'm over here. Again, I'm just going to kind of pop it through every few all the way around. Just little tacking stitches. So the eggs are what Linda Stoltz of Erica Michaels calls just a jelly roll pin. And you really are just going to cut a strip of fabric, roll it up, and stick a pin in it. Super easy. That's why I have my glue gun out. I took a class with Linda Stoltz, and she uses a glue stick. The class, they sent us glue sticks. I can't find that glue stick. I have no idea where it is. So I'm not going to use it because I don't know where it is. So this really is a case of use whatever glue you're comfortable with. If you like the Aleene's tacky glue, use the Aleene's tacky glue. If you can find a glue stick, use a glue stick. I'm comfortable with hot glue, so I'm just going to use my glue gun. So there's my back, right? It's just little stitches. I'm going to kind of take a little bite of the green and make a little knot. Snip this off. So before I sat down to film, I did a little playing around with eggs because I don't really know what size you want. So here's our nest. I made a 1/4 inch thick egg. That's not wide enough. Then I made a 1/2 inch egg. And I thought that's probably right, but I won't know until I have this part done. But I can see kind of from on here, I think 3 of these would fill that right up and look really similar to this picture. So what I did for those, you can see mine are pink. That's because, like I suggested, I just grabbed a piece of scrap felt and went with that so that I wouldn't use my good stuff. So the felt that we have is 5 inches by 7 inches. I took the 7-inch side and I cut a 1/2 inch strip. You guys are in a weird spot today. So I'm going to cut a 1/2 inch strip. And that will get me 2 eggs. I want 3 eggs. So I'm going to turn it the other way, which will now be 4 1/4 inches-ish. I'm going to cut another 1/2 inch strip, and then I'll just make this one, trim it up. So 1/2 inch strip. Three 1/2-ish. Right there. And then this one, I'm just going to measure up. Kind of just cut it in half. So I have 3 strips for eggs. So all you need to do with these, take your glue, whichever glue you prefer. Take one of your strips. If you had a pattern, make sure the pattern's like on the outside. These are the same on both. Just put a little smidge of glue on the end and roll it, just like a jelly roll. That will hold the inside. I didn't roll it super, super tight. I just kind of roll it up. And then when I get to the end, on that flap, I'm going to put a little more glue and hold it down. 1 egg. So I'll do the same thing on these. A little glue on one side, fold it down, roll it up. All the way to the end. A little glue on the inside flap, fold it in. There's 2. And then these we will attach with a pin once the topper is on the berry. So this topper is now done. We'll move on to the last one. Done. 3 eggs. So when we do these at the end, we'll just pin them in. 3 little eggs in their nest. So I'm going to set this one aside. So the last one, it's a good thing the cat's gone, she'd have eggs everywhere. The last one is this one here that uses 2 leaves and a flower. I wasn't sure about the flower. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So again, I used my craft felt and I made some trial and error flowers. So this is our topper. The one that she uses is a rose. So it would kind of be the rose with 2 leaves. I didn't know if I liked the rose. It wasn't doing it for me as much. I'm going to show you how to make it in case you want to do the rose. But then I've made some felt flowers before and I kind of like this shape. So I'm going to show you how to make both shapes of flowers, and then you can choose for yourself if you want to use a flower. You may want to do something completely different. You may want to put a little piece of ribbon in, or some more just buttons or different things, but I want to show you how to make the 2 flowers. I'm going to do this flower on mine, so we'll do this one on the purple, but this one that I know I'm not going to do, we're just going to use the craft felt. So I cut a piece of craft felt. This one happens to be 6 inches. Like I said, the wool we have is 7 inches, so it's a 1/2 inch strip the whole way. In order to give it these kind of waves, what you do is you take your scissors and you kind of cut a scallop shape up and down on your felt. And it doesn't need to be perfect because then it's all going to get rolled up. But this will give it some dimension. You do, when you get to the end, you do want your scallop to be down. You want it down on both sides. So then, like the jelly roll, you take this, you take your glue of choice, you put just a dab on one of the sides, and then you start to roll it. And as you roll, you keep the bottom flat edge kind of flat, but the scallop edge will give you that rose-like shape. Roll all the way around. Adjust your tightness if you wanted a loose rose. Like this one I just did is looser than the one I made earlier. When you get to the end, a little bit of glue. Stick it on there. Drop it on the floor. So there is your rose. Now you can see mine is smaller. This is kind of what I made, and then I'm like, well, I'd need a bigger one than that. That wouldn't be big enough. I just cut another strip and kept gluing. You cannot tell I used 2 strips. It covers the end. That way I could make it as big as I wanted it and still use the 5x7 piece of felt that we have. You might want 2 strips, 1/2 inch by the full 7 inches to get you a bigger rose. So that's how you make the rose. Now let's make this, which I don't even know what this is, but we're going to make this one. This one, you need to cut out 6 circles at whatever size you want it to be. This circle is the smallest circle, so it is 1 1/4, which is on the sheet. So 1 1/4. So you're going to cut out 6 1 1/4 circles. I'm just going to take my template and actually draw right on here, right in the edge, circle number 1. I used pencil. You could use a friction pen because we're just going to cut it right out, and this is the base. So I'm going to cut this circle right out. I'm not going to bother with the freezer paper. Why am I cutting it in blue? I should be cutting it in purple. Switch. Now we're going to do it again. So 1 1/4 inch circle in purple. Where's my pen this time? These friction pens, I can't say them. They, if you iron them, the marking goes away. Again, not that it matters, I'm going to cut it off. So, take 2, cutting out my circle. Okay, I need 6 of these. So Now I'm just going to hold this up and cut around it as best I can, because these don't need to be perfect. Right? I'm going to shut this camera off and just cut out 4 more circles that exact same way. All right, I am back. I cut out 6 imperfect circles. While I was at it, I also used the template and I cut out 2 more leaves. Then I kind of just went in and made these a little smaller. Look how wonky this one is. It's not going to matter. I'm going to make that my bottom leaf. Ta-da! So don't feel like they need to be perfect. You can make it work. So, the flower. You take one of your circles, and that is your base. And then what you're doing is you're going to take your other 5 pieces, and we're going to fold them in half, and fold them in half again. So you take your circle, run a little line of glue down the center, again, glue of choice, fold it right in half. Give it a little pinch. Then run a glue the other way. Fold it in half again to kind of get this shape. Then I just kind of set them under my scissors, like to dry, while I'm doing the rest. So again, a little glue in half. A little glue again, and half again. Tuck them under my scissors, just to kind of get some weight on them to hold them down. We'll do that with 5 of the 6 squares. And we got a lot of glue. Last one. Okay. So now we're going to take these that hopefully are going to stay glued. And they kind of puff up a little, which is perfectly fine. You want your flower to have some puffiness to it. So you take your one that you didn't glue, your flat circle. This is the base. So you're going to glue these other 4. You're going to glue 4 of them right onto the base to kind of fill up the base. And you want them so that your folds and your open sides are the same. So like, here's my fold. Here's my open side. So now my open side, I need a fold next to it. So I'll take this one, put some glue on it, and match my fold to my open side. This one's going to need a little glue. It's a little too much. So I'm just going to hold it down a little bit. So the next one, again, I'm going to take my fold and put my folded side next to, whoops, my open side. I did that one in the wrong spot and I had to move it over, but that's okay. One more. So this one will need to go this way. Tuck that in there. So that's your bottoms. You can kind of fluff them up a little bit. And then this 5th one, we're going to stick in the top. So we're just going to put a little glue around the bottom and kind of wedge it in the top in a way that you like the looks of. You might have to play around with the angle a little bit. My glue, because it's hot glue, is pretty forgiving. I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna figure it out first. So if I have it this way, like I want to figure it out how it will kind of fill up the most of that space. Right there. There we go. So I tucked it in there, and now I have, it's a rose. It's kind of a different shaped rose. Because I pulled it out, I just had a little spot of glue you could see in there. So pull that up. There. So again, that's kind of two different kinds of felt, but it looks just as pretty with this one. So there's my rose-ish, my flower. So now I'm ready to assemble. So I have my brighter green floss and my purple. I've never actually attached one like this, so we'll see how this goes. I'm going to do my leaves the same as I did on the last one with leaves. So take my floss, kind of stick them down. I thought about trying to just glue them and give them a little dimension, but this piece, I have one of those center flowers, some of the little roses, and then I kind of pinched my leaves in there. I don't know how that would work on a berry. Because I don't know, I wouldn't be able to get it flat. We're going to go with this. So again, I'm going to lay these with my wonky one on the bottom, and then my top one, and trying to get that rose in the middle. And I'm just going to tack these down with that line right up the middle. Actually, let's try something different on this. So when I was in the class, just trying to get that stitch out, Linda said that you can, if you do them like in a straight stitch, I was kind of going like a back stitch where you go up one and then come back to it. If you just kind of skip a little bit and do basically a running stitch, that you can pull it a little in the end and kind of curl your leaf up. So let's try. So I think we need to go, we need to do a couple just in the leaf, not in the cap. Let's see how this looks. Okay, and then if we pull this, does it? It makes it curl a little. Yeah. Now I'm going to do the other one. And I'm just going to take that same, actually, that's a long stretch. Oh, and I didn't go back through. Hold up. I'm going to pick some of those extra stitches out so that I'm back to where they're connected to the berry. So that I don't have that pull when I'm trying to connect the extra leaf. Okay. All right. So stitch this one on. And I'm going to do this one the way I normally do, with kind of like a back stitch where you go one way and then the other. And then I think for this flower, we're just going to take some small tacking stitches around the edges and see if that works. We'll hope for the best. A couple more. Okay. I have a knot back there, but it's on the bottom, so no one's going to notice. And then my purple. And we'll just do a little tacking stitch, kind of through that bottom circle that we glued things on. So we've got our flower. I'm just going to pick a side. And I'm just taking just some little stitches around the corner of that bottom purple piece. And that will be enough to hold it on. Unless your cats get it, and then it might need a little fixing. Or dogs, then it might need a lot of fixing. Mine haven't taken off with my berries yet, but I try to keep them in a basket or in my dough bowl, not just laying around tempting. Okay. Yeah, that's working fine. I couldn't find the edge there. So that'll hold it. And then it will have some pins in it too to kind of hold things together when we're done. Almost. So when I get this done, I'm going to stop the camera and fully do the caps, get them sewn on to 2 of the berries, and then we'll do the 3rd one together, so that way we can see them all without me having to stop the camera again, because you attach them all the same. So okay, so just some little stitches, tie this off. Got some hot glue on my needle, and give it a snip. So there is that topper. So we have 1, 2, 3. 3 toppers ready to go. So I'm going to just grab 2, sew them on, and then I will come back and do the 3rd one on with you guys, and then we'll attach all the little extra bits. Okay, you guys, we are almost there. So I have 2 of them sewn on. We're going to do this last one. So I just uncoil all that extra floss I had. Take my cap and decide where you want it to be. Where do you want your leaves to be, or your extra things to be? I tend to put my leaves to the left. They could just as easily go to the right, or the back, or the front. So it's just kind of personal preference where you think you want your leaves to go. Kind of hold it on there a little bit. Get them where you want them. And then I just grab a couple pins, pin it in place, just so you can really see, is it centered? If I kind of hold down on the cap, like this one looks like it's over this way too much because of the leaves. So just kind of tweak it until you have it where you want it. That looks pretty good. So I have my long thread, and I'm going to use my long needle. This is a 5-inch doll needle, and they're really handy for sewing these tops on. So we find where our long thread ended. Typically mine are by the seam. And then, oh, how convenient. It's right by one of the little scalloped edges. So I'm going to take my long needle and just kind of take a little bite out of this felt and push it all the way through to the scalloped edge on the other side. And sometimes it takes a couple tries to get that to pop out right where you want it. That one happened to. They didn't all on my last ones. And then I gently just pull this through. It might be a little knotted because it's a long thread. So you get it all the way through to the other side. Then you just repeat. Now on this side, again, you just take a little 1/8 of an inch, just a little bite, poke it through, and I usually go clockwise. So there's the one we were on before, so now we'll be over here under this leaf. Now look, I came up through the leaf. That's not where I want to be, so I just back it out and get it right where I want it. Pull it through. And I'm not pulling super tight, it's just enough to tack it on. So I'm going to do that on all of the little scalloped bits. Sometimes you gotta figure out where'd I leave off. Is this one? At this point I could take those pins out, but they're not in my way. I'll just do it when I'm done. All the way through. I have one left. So, come through on the last one. It's right here. All the way through to underneath. And then I'm going to switch to my smaller needle because it's easier to maneuver. So now with this, I still need to tack this side down. So I'm going to tack it down, go up like that 1/8 of an inch, and try and come out roughly in the same spot. Like I'm a little below, but it's close enough to pull it through. And now I've tacked that down. Then I'm going to kind of just take a little bite of my fabric, just a little tiny bit, come through, and then knot my needle through the loop to make a little knot to end my thread. So now I know that's secure, and then I'm going to stick my needle into my Lugana and then pop it up so that it comes up through the top of my berry and pull it through. And this way, when I cut it, that extra thread will be inside your berry and you won't need to worry about it. So I'm just going to give this a little pull so that it kind of comes up a little and snip it. And then now it's down in. Pull those out. And there's my top. So the last step for these is to attach our little goodies. So let's see. This one here had on the picture, it has this Jabco, just another Button Company pin mini. So we'll pop those out. I love these pin minis. They're fun. They add a little something extra. You can take them out when you're storing something, and they just give it a little color. So They just kind of had them in the side. You can put them anywhere, right? Sure, berry. So seems mine is looking this way. I'm just going to stick these in. And, you know, move them wherever you want. There they are. So there is springberry number 1. The bunny had the other pin mini set. Open these up. Again, they can go wherever because I already have leaves on this side. I might kind of put them around the other side. Or I might put one of the flowers on this side. And then the leaf and the bird. Or I might decide that's too many and, you know, take one out. Again, it's whatever you want it to be. So there's, like, if I left that out, it would just be the bird in the green, or the bird in the white flower might show better. So it's whatever you choose to have it be. There's berry number 2. Now the last one is our nest. And this one just has those eggs in it. So those eggs you just stick in with a flat pin. I don't have any extra long flat pins. That's something I might see if I can find, just because I have cats and I really want them in there. So we're just going to take our little egg. I want the roly part, you know, with the flap to be on the bottom, and just put my pin right through it. Mine's a little harder because I used the hot glue. And we're just making our own pins, and then that can go right in, and do the same with the other 2. So again, just pop it right through. And adjust them where we want them. So let's see, here's the front of my egg. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. And you can kind of just wiggle them around until you get them where you like them. So we have 3 eggs and a nest. So that is all 3 springberry toppers, start to finish. Again, that's just how I'm doing them. There are so many alternatives in ways that you could do them. Just buttons, very simple, just caps with leaves. You know, whatever you choose to do, they're all going to turn out beautiful. So I hope that was helpful, and I can't wait to see how everyone finishes their berries. Thank you, guys.